Hi, this is Dr. Deborah Zucker, and welcome back to our third video in the Personal Sustainability module. So let's start with the question of exploring, what does health and self-care now look like from this new foundation, from this new territory that we dropped into in the last video? And one thing I want to really point out in this learning process that we're in is the difference between accessing something in a mental way, so the philosophical sense of connection, versus really dropping into our bodies and feeling it, knowing it viscerally. And this distinction is really key to the transformative journey that I'm guiding you on right now. So when we touch back into what was evoked in that guided meditation in the last video, see if you can drop in to actually feel that sense of connection with the life energy that's infusing you. To access a felt sense of the awe, the wonder, the incredible curiosity of what it is to have your consciousness in a body, to actually recognize that you are able to be conscious of life infusing you uniquely in this particular form, with these particular eyes looking out in the world, and all of your unique feelings and sensations and emotions and perspectives. To drop into a felt sense of reverence, of the miracle. And it is a miracle if you're able to really drop in and feel it, that you're alive and you're conscious that you're alive in a body, and you have conscious choice of how you move through life and what you're prioritizing. And just pausing for a second and feeling that. Because this felt feeling, this is the place to continue to return to. In all of what we're talking about and exploring together around what personal sustainability is, this is the ground that holds it all. This is what really creates the shift of how you'll move through the rest of your life. And the potentiality for evoking and coming into a level of vitality, aliveness, alignment, clarity with life itself. So I know I'm pointing to it now, and it's quite a journey to come into a place of living this day to day. But this is the beginning of the journey. And so the more that I can support you in getting tastes of what's possible there, the more the pathway will begin to appear, to reveal itself, because you're already going to be walking some of the steps. So with all of that in mind, this video is an introductory look at the 8 ingredients of personal sustainability. So this is starting to fill in the context of the territory. And so you can consider these ingredients to be like guideposts. They're stakes in the ground, revealing aspects of the new territory for you to grow into and explore. And you may wish to pause the video after each new ingredient to allow more of an opportunity to open to what's being evoked for you. This is a lot of material in a really brief video. I could do easily an 8-week or longer program simply on what I'm touching into with these 8 ingredients here. So I highly encourage you to continue with your reflective journaling, even as you're going, if you want to pause it as you go to really give more time to digest and be with it. So starting off with the first ingredient, I call this one embracing an awakened responsibility. And the word awakened is key here, because that word responsibility can trigger so many things for us and cause a lot of resistance and evoke that rebellious teenager within. And so what I want to start off with is that this is not the kind of responsibility that's about all the rights and wrongs and shoulds. This kind of responsibility is connected with us being awake to the gift of life, of that foundation that we've just been touching into. And when we're awake to that, we recognize the inherent responsibility in stewarding ourselves into the most vital person that we can be, because we are each the only one responsible for this particular body and being. And I want to pause there again to support you, not just in getting that at a mental level, because of course that seems really obvious, but to actually drop in and feel that from the place of really sensing this preciousness of having a body and being alive, and that you are the only one responsible for taking care of this particular body. And it requires us to confront and fully face our mortality, that our embodiment is so fleeting and so fragile, even as we may in this moment feel so very alive and so real and so here. But in order to really embrace this awakened responsibility, we need to face our mortality and know that our time here is limited in this particular body. And from that orientation, there's no greater honor or service than tending to yourself, so that you can actively and fully take your place as an integral, conscious player in our collective unfolding and future. You're uniquely here to serve in that way, to support your own full expression as an integral member of life. And from that place, you're simply serving life itself. So the second ingredient, revealing your light and shadows. And I imagine some or most of you have probably in your personal transformation or developmental kind of work have done some focus around your shadows, around working with the parts of yourself that are more in that unconscious realm, that are playing out, the habitual patterning that's playing out, that has roots perhaps in some wounding or in ways in which we've been afraid to really let ourselves be seen and come out in the world. And a lot of that is unconscious to us. And in the realm of health and in sustaining the changes that we're seeking and really moving into this new orientation towards ourselves, focusing in this territory is vital and central, because so many of our patterns of avoidance and self-sabotage have their roots in these shadows, in what we have not been able to see with clear eyes. And we free ourselves when we turn towards what we have not wanted to face, when we embrace our shame, when we reveal our fears, when we acknowledge and own and are witnessed in our self-judgments. And I love Brene Brown's work around this and how much she's popularizing these ideas of the strength of our vulnerability, and how being willing to reveal the authentic fullness and complexity of who we are to ourselves and others actually supports us in consciously coming home and embodying all of who we are. And as we have the courage to expose our masks, to let down, it also means that we're choosing to really own who we're uniquely here to be, to reveal our genius. So the shadow area, this unconscious area, is not just about the dark, ugly parts. It's about our light, shining brilliance. And they're all intertwined and interconnected. There isn't the kind of polarity that we tend to create here. What this is all really about is owning and coming home more fully to the wholeness of who we are. And one other thing just to say on this ingredient is that this is a realm where we really need others. It's so hard to be able to see what we haven't been able to see without the support and reflections of other people. So number 3, knowing your wholeness. We are all interconnected, within ourselves, with each other, with the planet, with all of life, with all that is. And because of the way our mind works and the way in which we language things, we're so habituated to orient it around the separation and the distinctions. But what I want to emphasize here is that even saying body, mind, emotion, spirit, we're creating separation where there's none. So it serves a place in terms of directing our attention to recognize these distinctions. And at the same time, I want us to really emphasize and drop in again to that felt sense that they're actually all the same. That we are whole, and these are all different reflections and different dimensions of the same thing. And from this place of wholeness, we can also acknowledge that health is not the absence of pathology, which is, kind of the common orientation in the broader culture and medical and health paradigm now. So health is not the absence of pathology. We can navigate with different diagnoses and different pathologies and very much be in alignment and in the fullness of our vital health and potential. It's a matter of framing. It's a matter of how we're holding it. And if we're viewing health and our life, as a whole, as a transformative journey, an evolutionary journey in which we're coming more and more into our full expression in life, we can see, and this is how I know this intimately in my own journey, how the pathology or the diseases that we may navigate are central to that evolution. And this is a big shift, and I'm just introducing it here from our modern, current, predominant medical and health paradigms that we're in. And what I also want to say about health is that it's not static and there's not an end goal. We also think of health a lot habitually in a very black and white kind of way with I'm healthy or I'm not healthy, or gradations of that. But that's not what health is. And so I hope you're beginning to get a sense of what I'm pointing towards here. So when we know our wholeness, we can honor health as inherent to the evolutionary, transformative nature of life itself. And when we truly get this, our habitual way of relating with health in a physicalistic orientation falls away. So just let that sink in again too, because so much, even if we think that we're orienting in a holistic way for ourselves, when it comes to things going wrong or us having symptoms or us feeling out of control, it's so easy to, like a rubber band, to kind of snap back into a very physicalistic orientation to what health is and to lose sight of the interconnection of all aspects of ourselves. And so from this place, when we drop into knowing our wholeness, again, I keep using the language of dropping in, so it's not just a mental orientation. When we can drop in, we can listen with discernment for the full spectrum of nourishment that our life energy seeks in order to thrive. So number 4, opening to intimate self-knowing and mastery. So we each are the only one that's able to receive and heed the feedback from our body and being. And thus, we are the only ones that have the potential to become masters of ourselves. So again, mentally, that's probably obvious. But to really pay attention to that, okay, I can actively learn how to heed the feedback that I'm receiving all the time, to expand my awareness, to drop into greater intimacy with myself, to have greater discernment, to know how all the different choices I'm making in my life is impacting me, because the feedback's there constantly. It's just a matter of whether we fine-tuned our awareness to notice. And then once we've noticed, if we learn the skills to self-regulate, to realign and shift our state of being on all levels. So whether that's, being aware of how the foods we're eating are impacting us, or the relationships that we're in, or the ways in which we move our body, or how our engagement with our job or our studies are influencing us. We can learn biofeedback skills. We can do somatic emotional therapy work. We can learn more about nutrition. This is on every level of our engagement with the world. There are things for us to learn and capacity building that's possible for us to feel more empowered and able to shift in the moment our experience, so that we develop and own our expertise, and we discover that we can come into an inherent ease and empowerment in caring for ourselves. No longer do we need to put the expertise outside of ourselves. We can filter the outside knowledge through our own unique wisdom and expertise of ourselves. We don't need to start with looking for the answers there. We start by feeling within our own truth and our own sense of alignment and our own inner wisdom and guidance. So, whether it's at the physical level or the intuitive, more spiritual listening, on all different aspects for ourselves, we have the capacity. And I'm calling this out to name that this is an opportunity for all of us to grow a great deal. Number 5, experimenting with playful curiosity. I absolutely love this one, and I love it because there's such a simplicity to it, and every time I introduce this to people, it creates almost an immediate sense of letting down and relaxation. Because so much of the time, in sort of how health and creating habit changes has been modeled for us, we create this rigidity, and again, all those shoulds, and this sense of trying to rally ourselves into creating change. And when we adopt a sense of experimentation, and not only experimentation, but that we get to be playful and curious about it, it frees us in life. It creates such a freedom to how we move through life. When we relax into framing our choices and intentions as experiments rather than the habitual should, we get to be a conscious, curious explorer of ourselves. And then again, we get to tune back into that feedback, and we get to listen and heed it, and then make our next choice from that place. So nothing needs to be linear or static in life. And when we choose to consciously dance in this way with ourselves, by creating changes and experiment, we're simply aligning with the natural evolutionary impulse within. And so everything becomes part of a playground. Life becomes a playground. And this freedom, this relaxation that we experience is a huge part of the healing. So number 6, choosing to feel good. So again, wow, what a shift. That actually a key ingredient and guidepost to our health journey, to personal sustainability, is that we get to choose to feel good. And feeling good is what gets buy-in on all levels of our being. So when we have that feedback, when we're feeling good, of course we want to return to that state. And what I'm talking about here is not the kind of quick fix, superficial feedback that we often unconsciously turn to in our disempowered states. And I'm sure we all have our own versions of that, whether it's, going to ice cream, or, a TV show that's going to numb us out, or whatever it might be. And I'm not meaning to be black and white here, because there's a place for those kinds of things too in life as part of the full spectrum. But what I want to evoke here is the sense of feeling good, that our whole being comes into a raw, awake contact with being fully alive. there's just a sense of being in the flow and being alive and vital and awake and engaged and aligned with who we're here to be. And we just feel the fullness of our life expression. And we want to get back there. It's like so often we have tastes of that in retreats or, out on a wilderness trip or whatever it might be for us. And there's just a sense of, oh, this is what life can be like. And of course we want to return to that. And so when we begin to orient around choosing to feel good at this level as a central priority in life, our health journey actually becomes a path of awakening. Because this level of feeling good that I'm pointing at, this is our potentiality. This is, in a sense, the opportunity that we're born into to truly, fully be alive and awake in our body and being throughout our life. So 7, discovering easeful discipline. I love this one too. Easeful discipline, those in some ways may seem contradictory because of how we habitually relate to discipline in our lives. And the first thing I want to say is that we need this guidepost, we need this ingredient, because to create any change, we need times of structure, intention, and support, because there's always going to be these transitional periods of healing and transformation where things are uncomfortable and disorienting, and it can take a while to get to that feel-good, self-supporting feedback that I was just talking about when we're in the midst of change. It's sort of like at whatever level it's happening, when things are dying off and we're in that transition and we've been so patterned in a particular way, it's really uncomfortable. It's like the seed bursting through the ground, that kind of transformation. And we need discipline to provide us with the structure and container to stick with it, to actually stay in movement rather than get pulled back or stuck in this transitional space. But the discipline doesn't need to be rigid rules, and it doesn't need to be the cruel self-talk or needing to overcome ourselves kind of approach that makes up so much of what health has become, that obviously is very unhealthy. So easeful discipline starts with a clear commitment to serve our highest potential and a fierce dedication to stay connected to the heart of life. So again, as I said before, the foundation is continuing to come back to that felt sense of connection, of reverence and awe for being the steward of this life and this body and this being and all the dimensions of who you are. And so when we're connected to that and we come into that clear commitment to serve our highest potential and we're dedicated to that fiercely, from that place we can honestly and strategically create the containers of support that will keep us connected with our commitment. And that's not from a should, but from a clear sense of self-stewardship. So number 8, remembering you're not alone. And this, ties in exactly with what I was just saying, that when we're truly serving our life energy, the barriers to leaning into others for help and support drop away, because there's that fierce commitment, that fierce dedication, and we're awake to what really matters, and we'll do what it takes to support our life energy. And what I want to really emphasize with this guidepost is that no ingredient is more powerful and essential as relational support to actualize the full potential of our transformation. So I just want to emphasize that again. No ingredient is more powerful and essential as relational support to actualize the full potential of our transformation. And I know in my own health journey, which this course is a translation of, that it took me a while to really be able to relax into leaning into others for support and knowing how to in a way that really served me. and who to lean into. So having the discernment around that too. So, we need each other to come to see our shadows, to learn new self-regulation skills and knowledge, to be held in our experiments of easeful discipline. So this is just touching into this dimension, but I really want to encourage all of you to find those supports for yourself, whether it's hiring a professional or having a health buddy or friend, or finding a community or practice, or leaning into your family or partner, whoever it may be. And I would say we need a collection, different kinds of support that will allow us to stay in our movement in different ways. So that was a lot of material in a brief period of time, and I just want to encourage you to really give yourself some spaciousness in your integration of this. So the first invitation for you is to grab your journal and do some stream of consciousness writing for about 10 minutes or so, and simply just explore what was evoked for you in each of the 8 ingredients. You might, before you do the stream of consciousness, you might just write down each of them and then just let it come, and don't edit, don't censor, just be able to witness yourself of what was evoked as you encountered each of these guideposts, each of these ingredients. And then I'd like you to create one habit change experiment. So, revisiting that idea of the playful, curious experimentation as an orientation for yourself. And having the experiment support you in feeling good at that deep level. And try it for at least 1 week. And I want you, when you're designing this experiment, to be really realistic. Don't take on too much. Make it doable, playful, really embracing of that sense of easeful discipline. And make sure to include some element of relational support, whether it's through this online community or, someone in your home environment. But make sure to reach out for some support. And at the end of the week, journal about your experience and make sure to note what you learned about yourself, what you would shift in your experiment moving forward, whether or not you choose to continue, and how it felt to reach out for support and what the impact of that was for you. All right, I will see you in the next video, which is really about clarifying your commitments moving forward and continuing to integrate and incorporate all of this learning in your daily life.